muchos recursos, gente bella, desde 12.000 pies en las montañas de los Andes hasta 400 pies abajo en el occidente de Boyacá. Esmeraldas, guerra civil. Colombia en Sudamérica es un país contradictorio y complejo con 38 millones de habitantes. Y ningún colombiano es tan complejo o contradictorio como Víctor Carranza Niño. Colombia es la primera fuente de esmeraldas en el mundo. En Colombia, la industria esmeraldífera y Víctor Carranza han estado siempre unidos. Por muchos años, un hombre ha dominado la industria minera en Colombia. Este hombre es Víctor Carranza Niño, el llamado zar de las esmeraldas. Carranza ha sido el promotor de un mercado organizado en las esmeraldas, una bolsa, pero no ha tenido mucho éxito en su propósito. Y ahora, él y su plan de la bolsa están en el limbo. Carranza está en la cárcel.
Pues yo cuando vine de aquí arriba de mi casa, vi que había una señora muerta aquí abajo. Y me decían que era una tal señora de una tal Carranza. Ay, sí, pero no la miré como cuando estaba gateando, pero ya estaba muerta.
Diferentes trabajos, talleres, etc.
¿Tiene muchos problemas con seguridad?
No, para nada no. Tenemos.
A veces necesita, tú tienes pistolero.
Sí,
¿Qué tú tienes? ¿Qué es nombre? 38.
38.
¿Sí? Muéstrame. ¿Es necesita por permite de gobierno?
Del Estado. Sí.
¿Sí? ¿Tú tienes papeles?
Sí, sí, claro. Todo es legalizado aquí en la compañía.
En la soledad que entre cardos y espinos su fruto da.
Lofty peaks in the Cordillera Central Mountains in Panama, you can see both the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. The maritime miracle connecting the world's two largest seas and enhancing Mobile, Alabama's port location is the Panama Canal. Ironically, one of Mobile's own, William Crawford Gorgas, owns a lion's share for the success of the construction of the canal. The threat of the infectious mosquito and its bite is back in a big way here in Panama, some 85 years after Gorgas first licked the mosquito. TV spots, newspaper photos, and articles. Although the media is modern and high-tech, the message resonates with the admonitions of Gorgas. Cover, screen, or clean containers of standing water. Drain swamps. Chop down grass and shrubs where the mosquitoes breed. The control center for the contemporary crusade against the dengue-fomenting mosquito is the Gorgas Memorial Center. Its sterile, immaculate lab is on the cutting edge. Its library is considered the world's best reference source for tropical medicine and biology. I'm here at El Puente de las Americas, the Bridge of the Americas, built over the Panama Canal in the early 1960s. The Panama Canal, of course, connects the Atlantic Ocean, some 50 miles to the north, with the Pacific Ocean, here on the south side of the Republic of Panama. To the east of the Bridge of the Americas is the famous Ancon Hill, with the flag of Panama flying overhead. Ancon Hill was named after the boat Ancon, the first boat to sail through the Panama Canal back in 1914. Further on to the east is the skyline of Panama City, the capital of the Republic of Panama.
Gorgas is not going to go from this laboratory, never.
The name Gorgas will always be here.
Will always be here, yes.
And
the idea of Gorgas, the legacy of Gorgas and all what Gorgas represents for the science, for the medical science, for tropical diseases, and even for health. We are going to get the name, but also the principles of Gorgas. That's very important for us.
this is Stephen Jackson reporting from Panama. Hello, I'm Stephen Flanagan Jackson here in Bogota. Welcome to Columbia Scene. Columbia Scene is the new video news magazine featuring Columbia people, Columbia places, and Columbia events starting Sunday every week in September. That's Columbia Scene, the new news and information video news magazine in English with Spanish subtitles. I've been a journalist here in Columbia for some 14 years. Now I'd like to invite you to join me and my Colombian colleagues in the new video news magazine, Columbia Scene. Columbia Scene is launching in September. We hope you will join us. I'm Stephen Flanagan Jackson here in Bogota for Columbia Scene. Gracias. Death and violence stalk the journalist in Colombia, especially the journalist who exposes and crusades against the narco-traffickers, the cocaine mobs, and their assorted entourage who threaten the soul and the life of South America's oldest democratic nation. Beautiful, gay Bogota has become beleaguered and bloody Bogota. 8,000 feet high in the Andes Mountains, this cosmopolitan capital of 5 million people, once hailed as the Athens of the hemisphere, is now more like Beirut.
Your writing from Colombia reads like dispatches from a war correspondent, and that's really what's going on in Colombia.
It does. It's like the front lines of a war. It's not a general all-out war like perhaps Vietnam or even as bad as Beirut. But the drug war is definitely a war. There's soldiers all over Colombia when you walk around the streets. There's, at the airport, I must have seen more dogs than I'd seen the kennel out here in Tuscaloosa. 24 or 30 dogs on a leash walking around sniffing would-be passengers and parcels when you get on an airplane. It's a full-scale war, Brent, and the people are fighting it, and they're fighting back very hard. They've just about had it with the drug cartel's grip and hold on their society.
There is not free press in my country because of the violent situation. And I guess that the situation is going to be like this for so many years.
His eyes are screaming blue. His hair is red blood.
The end of the drug war, the Civil War, is difficult to predict. But it is not difficult to see the tremendous anxiety as well as violence which is overwhelming Colombia. To this point, the pen, the news media, if not proving to defeat the drug lords, has at least proven it has the resolve and courage to stand up against their sword.
Birmingham-based Drummond Company Incorporated ranks in the top 25% of U.S.-owned coal companies based on production, due to a move made nearly 20 years ago. Drummond has been mining coal ever since its inception in 1935 in Alabama's Shoals Creek area. Then during the late 1980s, Drummond acquired the mining rights to the La Loma coal mine located in northern Colombia.
Bogota is down here in the central part of the country, the capital, up very high in the mountains, city of eternal spring, beautiful city in beautiful year-round spring-like climate. The mines are way up here near the Caribbean coast and near the border of Cesar in a little place called La Loma, near a city called Valledupar, right in this area of Colombia. And Drummond has invested extensively, millions and millions of dollars in the mining operations. They built a railroad spur all the way to the coast where they built a port to accommodate these big barges which take the coal right on through the Caribbean, right on up into Mobile.
Associate professor for Stillman College and associate editor of the Latin American Post in Colombia, Stephen Flanagan Jackson, has been going back and forth to Colombia since the 1980s, following Drummond Coal and the story behind the corporation.
It's the world's largest open-pit coal mine, and they started that in 1995. They promised the workers here in Alabama, we'll never bring this Colombian coal back into Alabama. Well, after a few years, they've started shipping it back into Alabama, much to the chagrin of these laid-off coal miners and their unions here in Alabama, a prime example of globalization and outsourcing. And in Colombia, from my experiences, Colombia's in a civil war. Colombia's been in a civil war since 1948. It's much more than a drug war. And I knew that Drummond was kind of setting themselves up for some problems. I could kind of foresee it. In fact, I wrote about it in many articles before these tragedies occurred.
The tragedies Jackson refers to are 3 murders. In March of 2001, 2 of Drummond's workers who were union leaders were killed. Then later in October, the new union leader that had taken over was also murdered. Now 3 years later, the survivors of the 3 labor organizers killed are suing Drummond Coal in Alabama, accusing Drummond of conspiring with right-wing paramilitary groups to intimidate and murder mining union leaders in Colombia.
Part of the problem also is, if you've got capital, if you've got wealth, you have to hire private guards. Well, Drummond hired private guards. People that are private guards pack weapons. People that pack weapons also do other things. And some of these people, it's alleged, that work for Drummond also moonlight as members of the paramilitary right-wing death squads, which hate the left-wing communist guerrillas, and they also hate anyone that belongs to a union movement. They tend to lump the two together.
Jackson says it could take up to 18 months for a court to decide if Drummond is or is not at fault.
Can I get your name, please, sir?
Stephen Flanagan Jackson, StephenFlanagan, Jackson.
And you are?
I am associate editor of LatinAmericanPost.com and also associate professor at Stillman College.
Tell me what you're doing at the federal courthouse here today.
I am filing a pro se motion to intervene in the case of the Colombian Labor Union versus the Drummond Company.
And what are you asking?
I am asking the judge to reconsider the protective order, which I call a gag order, which impairs my ability as a journalist. It also impairs all the media's ability to report and to gather information on this very important case, which involves public issues.
And what sort of issues does the case involve? If you can kind of just give me just a little bit of background.
This case involves the murder of 3 Colombian coal union members at the Drummond mine in Colombia. This coal that we use for our electricity, for our heat, for the lights, and the Hugo Black Courthouse is coming from Colombia. Drummond is mining it down there. It is coming into Alabama dripping with the blood of 3 assassinated Colombian coal mine union members. Why were they murdered? Because they were members of the union. What's going on here? Who's purchasing this coal? control Alabama Power? Who's regulating Alabama Power? The Alabama Public Service Commission. Why is the president of the Alabama Public Service Commission, Jim Sullivan, going to Columbia on Drummond's junket? What's going on here? Questions need to be asked. The public needs to be informed. The judge, in issuing this protective order, throws a shroud over the case and prevents us as journalists, and prevents the media, and prevents the public from seeing the dots and connecting the dots. I'm not trying to interfere in any way whatsoever with a fair trial. I am not an advocate. I just want to see what's going on, what's happening here.
Okay, and